Spreading lawn care products just got a whole lot easier with the Agri Fab 130-pound toe spreader. The easy set flow control with adjustable stop allows you to apply the precise amount of product to your lawn, essential for professional results in fertilizing, weed control, and other product applications. The smooth rolling enclosed commercial-grade gearbox stands up to years of heavy-duty use, and the hardware is specifically engineered to resist corrosion, no matter what products are being applied. The extra-large hopper can hold up to 130 pounds of product, enough to cover up to 25,000 square feet, or about a half an acre. And with pneumatic tires and universal tow hitch, it's easy to cover a lot of ground, no matter what brand of lawn tractor you have. Agri Fab is known for tough tools which are engineered to be both fast and easy.
In this segment, you'll see what's included in the box and what tools you'll need to complete the assembly. Before you begin assembly, be sure that all the parts and hardware are present. In the box you should have 1 hopper, Part 1, 2 wheels, Part 2, 1 right-hand hitch support tube, Part 3, 1 left-hand hitch support tube, Part 4, 2 hopper support tubes, Part 5, 1 axle gearbox assembly, Part 6, 1 cross brace, Part 7, 1 hitch assembly, Part 8, 1 flow control assembly, Part 9, 1 flow control rod, Part 10, 2 hopper braces, Part 11, 1 spreader impeller, Part 12. In the hardware package you will find 1 hitch pin, Part A, 2/4 by 2.5 inch hex bolts, Part B, 4/4 by 2 inch hex bolts, Part C, 6/4 by 1 3/4 inch hex bolts, Part D, 2 spacers, Part E, 1/4 by 1 inch hex bolt, Part F, 1/4 by 3/4 inch carriage bolt, Part G, 1 hairpin cotter, Part H, 1 hairpin agitator, Part I, 11/4 inch nylock nuts, Part J, 1 spacer, Part K, 2 spacers, Part L, 9/4 inch washers, Part M, 5 nylon washers, Part N, 4 5/8 inch washers, Part O, 1 3/32 by 3/4 inch cotter pin, Part P, 1 1/8 inch by 1 1/2 inch cotter pin, Part Q, 1 3/16 by 2 inch cotter pin, Part R, 3 plugs, Part S, 1 grip, Part T, 1 wing nut, Part U, 1 adjustable stop, Part V, 2 hex bushings, Part W, 1 hopper bushing, Part X, 1 3/8 inch plastic bushing, Part Y, 2 hubcaps, Part Z. Keep the assembly hardware in the bags until needed to keep them from getting lost. You will need the following tools to complete the assembly: a hammer, a pair of pliers, 2 7/16 inch wrenches, 2 1/2 inch wrenches. For additional or missing parts, contact Agri Fab directly at 1-800-448-9282 or online at www.speedepart.com. In this segment, we'll show you how to assemble the toe spreader frame. Begin by inserting a plug, Part S, into the end of the hitch tube, Part 8. Then install the hitch pin into the hitch bracket and hitch tube and secure it with the hairpin cutter, Part H. Next, align the hitch support tubes, Part 3, to the hitch tube. Then, secure them with 1/4 inch by 2 inch hex bolts, Part C, and a 1/4 inch nylock nut, Part J. Leave it a little loose for now. Next, press the hex bushing, Part W, into the ends of the hopper support tubes, Part 5. Now align the axle gearbox assembly, Part 6, with the hopper support tubes and the hitch support tubes. Ensure that the hole in the axle is oriented as shown. Then, on one side, insert a 1/4 inch by 2 inch hex bolt, Part C, through the hopper support tube. Now, slide a spacer, Part E, onto the bolt. Then push the bolt through the hitch support tube and secure it with a 1/4 inch nylock nut, Part J. Do not tighten it yet. Repeat for the other side. Next, press a bushing part Y into the cross brace, part 7. Then align the cross brace and secure it with 2 1/4" by 2.5" hex bolts, part B, and 2 1/4" nylock nuts, part J. Do not tighten them yet. Next, insert 2 plugs, part S, into the ends of the hopper support tubes. Your toe spreader frame is now complete.
This segment will show you how to attach the gearbox, spreader impeller, and the hopper. Install the gearbox, part 13, by inserting the vertical shaft through the plastic bushings in the cross brace. The axle should fit into the slots on the bottoms of the hopper support tubes. Make sure that the axle with the hole in it is on the same side as the hopper support tube, part 5. Locate the 2 flat-sided bearings, part W, and install them into the axle shafts with the flat sides facing outwards. Then, install the spreader impeller, part 12, onto the vertical spreader shaft, and secure it with a cotter pin, part Q. Bend the ends of the cotter pin for security using pliers. Take the hopper, part 1, and place it onto the hopper support tubes, making sure that the spreader shaft goes through the square hole in the bottom of the hopper. Next, slide the hopper bushing, part X, onto the spreader shaft and insert it into the bottom of the hopper. Now slide the spacer, part K, over the spreader shaft until it rests on the hopper bushing. Install the agitator hairpin, part S, into the hole in the top of the spreader shaft to secure the spreader shaft. Now secure the hopper to the hopper support tubes with 4 hex bolts, part D, each with a washer, part M, and nylon washer, part N, on them, and secure each bolt with 1 nylock hex nut, part J. Leave these bolts and nuts finger tight for now. Insert a hex bolt, part F, into the hole at the bottom of the hopper, pressing the head of the bolt into the hex-shaped recess of the hole. Install a nylock nut, part J, onto the bolt, and tighten this bolt and nut securely. Your gearbox, spreader impeller, and hopper are now installed. In this segment, we will show you how to attach the flow control assembly. Locate the flow control assembly, part 14, and install the grip, part BB, onto the flow control arm. Next, take a carriage bolt, part H, and assemble the adjustable stop, part V, to the flow control bracket. Insert the carriage bolt through the adjustable stop with the tabs facing up, and then through the bottom of the flow control bracket. Add a nylon washer, part N, and wing nut, part U, to secure the carriage bolt. Attach the flow control bracket to the hitch tube by taking 2 hex bolts, part D, inserting each one through a flat washer, part M, then through the flow control bracket, then through another washer, part M, and finally through the hitch tube. Secure the bolts with 2 nylock hex nuts, part J. Do not tighten the bolts completely. Locate the flow control rod, part 10, and find the end that does not have a hole in it. Insert this end into the elongated hole in the flow plate on the bottom of the hopper. Lock the rod into the flow plate by rotating the rod. Swing the other end of the flow control rod towards the flow control arm and insert it into the hole on the arm. Install a washer, part M, over the rod and secure it into place using a cotter pin, part P. Use the pliers to bend the ends of the cotter pin around the rod. This segment will show you how to attach the hopper braces. Locate the hopper braces, part 11. Remove the hex nut from the uppermost location of the hopper support tube that connects it to the hopper. Install the end of the hopper support brace, that has the sharpest angle on it, over the bolt, and then reinstall the hex nut onto the bolt. Do not completely tighten the nut at this time. Repeat this process for the other hopper support brace on the other side. Fasten the loose ends of the hopper braces to the hitch tube, using the hex bolt part C and nylock nut part J that were assembled earlier. Now, go back and tighten all the bolts and nuts that you have installed, except for the bolts that attach the flow control bracket to the hitch tube. In this segment, we will show you how to install the wheels and make final adjustments to the spreader. Slide a washer, part O, over the left-hand axle as viewed from the rear. Then slide on a spacer, part L, followed by another washer, part O, as shown. Then slide one of the wheels, part 2, onto the axle. Finally, install the hubcap, part Z, onto the axle, tapping lightly with a hammer until the hubcap is snug against the wheel. Repeat the last steps to install the other wheel to the opposite axle. Make sure the washers and spacer are up against the axle support of the hopper support. Now, locate the hole in the right-hand axle, making sure to align the hole in the wheel hub with the hole in the axle. Install a cotter pin, part R, through the drive wheel and axle holes. Then, bend the ends of the cotter pin around the axle using pliers. Using a hammer, gently tap the hubcap, part Z, onto the axle until it is snug on the wheel. The wheels are now assembled. We will now go ahead and adjust the spreader's flow plate to a working configuration. On the flow control bracket, loosen the wing nut and set the adjustable stop to a setting of 5. Tighten the wing nut. Pull the flow control arm against the adjustable stop for the on position. Then slide the flow control bracket along the hitch tube until the flow plate in the bottom of the hopper is halfway open. Hold the flow control bracket firmly and tighten the bolts and nuts fastening the control bracket. Make sure you do not over-tighten the bolts and deform the bracket. Now reset the adjustable stop to the 10 setting and maneuver the flow control arm to make sure that the flow control plate opens and closes all the way. If it doesn't, go back and readjust the flow control bracket until the flow control plate works properly. This segment will show you how to attach your tow spreader to your lawn tractor and set up your spreader for use. Now that the spreader is fully assembled, we can attach it to your lawn tractor and begin using it. First, remove the hair cotter pin from the hitch pin and remove the hitch pin from the hitch tube. Guide the hitch tube into the tow hitch on your tractor until the holes in the hitch tube align with the hole in the tow hitch. Then install the hitch pin through the holes and install the hairpin cotter to secure the spreader to your tractor. Please note, never attempt to operate the tow spreader without the hairpin cotter in the hitch pin. The tow spreader can separate from the tow tractor, which can lead to damage to the spreader and possible injury. To begin using the spreader after it is attached to the tractor, loosen the wing nut on the flow control bracket and set the adjustable stop to the flow rate you want. Make sure to consult the chart on page 8 of the owner's manual and the instructions on the fertilizer bag to determine the proper settings for the flow control. Pull the flow control arm against the adjustable stop for the on position. The flow control can be locked into the off position by moving the flow control arm all the way towards the hopper and into the locking notch. Use this off position whenever you are transporting the spreader without actually dispensing any fertilizer. We do not recommend using this spreader with powdered lawn chemicals due to difficulty in obtaining a satisfactory or consistent broadcast pattern. To ensure safe product application, follow the following steps. Determine the amount of material needed for the area you will be spreading. Make sure the flow control arm is initially locked in the closed position. Fill the hopper with material, making sure to break up any clumps in the material. Refer to the application chart on page 8 of the owner's manual for the correct flow rate for your material. The chart in the owner's manual is calculated for a vehicle speed of 3 miles an hour. A variation in speed will require an adjustment to the flow rate to maintain the same coverage. However, do not exceed 6 miles per hour with the broadcast spreader. Speeds above 6 miles per hour may cause excessive wear of the spreader parts. Always start the tractor in motion before opening the flow plate. Always close the flow control plate when turning or stopping the tractor. If fertilizer is accidentally deposited too heavily in a small area, soak the area thoroughly with a garden hose or sprinkler to prevent burning of the lawn. For additional information on the recommended broadcast pattern, refer to page 8 of the owner's manual. This segment will show you how to properly maintain and store your spreader. As with any lawn product, periodic maintenance is critical to ensure that your spreader continues to operate properly. The spreader should be visually inspected before each use to make sure everything is in working order. Before each use, Check for any loose bolts or nuts that may have come loose and retighten them as necessary. Check the condition of all cotter pins and hairpins to make sure that they are in place and secured properly. Replace any missing pins before operating the spreader. Check for worn or damaged parts before each use. Repair or replace them if necessary. Check the tires for proper inflation and inspect the tires for any cuts, objects caught in the tread, or objects that may have punctured the tires. Repair or replace the tires as needed. Please note, do not overinflate the tires. The maximum tire inflation pressure is stamped on the side of the tire. To clean your spreader after each use, use a garden hose to rinse out the hopper and spray down the rest of the spreader until it is clean. Allow the spreader to fully dry before storing it away. Be sure to regularly lubricate all moving parts with a light coat of multi-purpose grease. You should lubricate the wheels and axle bushings at least once a year, and more often as needed. When storing the spreader, remember to completely rinse out the hopper, clean the exterior of the spreader, and allow the spreader to dry thoroughly before storage. Always store the spreader in a clean, dry area. For any additional service and adjustments, please see page 9 of the owner's manual.